They demonstrate the internal decay of a democracy. They demonstrate how people might be persuaded to voluntarily give up their independence in exchange for security out of fear of disorder, fear of others. It's a cosmic retelling of the fall of Rome. It tells of the growth of darkness and the failure of decent institutions. With a steady creep that nobody notices until it's too late, rather than with a big bang. Spaceships were never the only aspect of Star Wars. It was a Trojan horse, a masterful work of entertainment intended to sneak a whole mythological structure into a generation that Lucas believed was spiritually desolate. The prediction that the Chosen One would restore equilibrium to the Force is arguably the most misinterpreted concept in Star Wars. Many followers believed for years that balance entailed an equal distribution of light and dark, a sort of cosmic yin-yang in which both sides are required. George Lucas, however, has totally demolished that notion in his clarifications throughout the years, exposing a far more profound and ethically absolute perspective. The widely held fan theory is not only slightly incorrect, but entirely false. Furthermore, realizing his true intentions alters the saga's entire moral terrain. Lucas claims that the dark side is not an inherent aspect of the Force. It's a cancer, a corruption. According to his description, the dark side is a disease that preys on the Force, which is a living being. Consequently, the Sith are more than merely adherents of a different ideology. They are the disease's agents. They are self-centered. By taking from the Force and manipulating it for their own benefit, they upset the balance of the entire system. The Force in its optimal, natural state is represented by the light side. It's about being a conduit for the energy of the cosmos, being unselfish, and having compassion. The Sith command the Force, while the Jedi serve it. That is the crucial distinction. Therefore, striking a balance does not entail sacrificing darkness. It entails removing it. It entails returning the Force to its original, unadulterated form. This brings us to Anakin Skywalker, a terrible figure. He was regarded by the Jedi as the Chosen One. In a horrible, ironic turn of events, he fulfilled his destiny of destroying the Sith and restoring equilibrium. Anakin's downfall was the culmination of the very imbalance he was meant to correct. It wasn't just a switch of teams. Fear and selfishness, the two pillars of the evil side, were the main causes of his downfall. He feared losing Padme as much as he feared losing his mother. He wanted control over life and death because of his fear. The ultimate cancer cell, Palpatine, took advantage of that anxiety. Anakin transformed into Darth Vader, a creature of pure selfish intent and the ultimate agent of imbalance. Vader and the Emperor kept the Force in a deep state of illness for 20 years. The light was almost extinguished. Since the patient was close to passing away, the odds were not in favor of either party. Luke's experience is very important because of this. The prophecy is ultimately realized through the Chosen in Return of the Jedi's last battle. First, Luke is seduced by the Emperor using the same elements that shattered his father, power and fear. Angrily, he pushes Luke to hit him. And Luke does, for a moment. In his anger, he assaults his father. Then came the crucial moment. Luke glances at his father's severed hand before turning to his own prosthetic hand. And recognizes himself in the image. He can see his current course. He then makes a decision that is completely at odds with the Sith. He discards his lightsaber. He puts selflessness ahead of power. Like my father before me, I am a Jedi, he announces. The Anakin Skywalker hidden deep within Darth Vader is awakened by this act of unselfish love. Anakin takes his last decision while Luke is electrocuted by the Emperor. In order to save his son, he seizes the Emperor and throws him into the reactor. Anakin Skywalker completes his destiny with just one deed. He eliminates the malignancy and destroys the Sith, both his master and the Sith inside of him. He brings things back into equilibrium. There was never any mention of a warrior winning in the prophecy. It was about the ultimate act of selflessness, the act that would heal the galaxy, being a father's love for his son. Luke maintained equilibrium by choosing not to fight. In doing so, he helped his father save the cosmos by saving his soul. Please hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel if this in-depth look inside George Lucas's thoughts is changing your perspective on the saga. We're all about discovering the actual significance of the tales we like. Your assistance enables us to continue digging. Let's move on to the last puzzle piece. What, therefore, is George Lucas' last deed? What project would define his legacy when he sold Lucasfilm and left his galaxy? The Lucas Museum of Narrative Art in Los Angeles is currently developing the solution. Furthermore, according to Lucas' own statements regarding the idea, this is the tangible realization of his complete ideology rather than merely a museum. The museum, which is expected to open in 2026, may be the most tangible representation of the concepts we have been discussing. It is a billion-dollar establishment devoted to the principle that has guided Lucas throughout his life. One of the most potent factors influencing our world is visual storytelling. The collection will not be restricted to what the snobs in the art world refer to as fine art. Rather, it will honor the power of narrative in a variety of mediums, including comic books, paintings, illustrations, photographs, and movie storyboards. This statement is enormous. The distinction between high and low art was well defined for centuries. While the comic art that sparked our imaginations is sometimes written off as trash, master paintings are displayed in stuffy rooms. Lucas is erasing that line with his wealth. He boldly adds, "I'm so glad I didn't outgrow comics," after proudly acknowledging that he was among those who were told he would outgrow them. It is demonstrated by the museum's collection. It will contain a vast collection of African American film history, putting pieces by Frida Kahlo and Norman Rockwell next to those by Frank Frazetta and Jack Kirby. Why? Because Lucas recognizes that a society's narratives represent its vitality. A movie poster that promises adventure, a Rockwell painting of an American Hamlet, or a Superman comic that encourages children to be heroes. These are not insignificant matters. These are the prevalent mythologies that we currently inhabit. He contends that ideas we take for granted, such as justice, love, and community, are not physically real. We all agree to believe in these myths and ideals. And those concepts are ingrained in our culture and given a sense of realism by narrative art. It is impossible to establish a society without a common mythology. The museum returns to Star Wars at this point. It will contain a vast collection of Star Wars and Indiana Jones props, costumes, and storyboards, of course, but they won't be displayed as mere film props. They will be positioned within the broader framework of historical narrative. Historic landscapes will converse with a Ralph McQuarrie concept painting. The design of a starship will be connected to industrial architecture concepts. The museum aims to demonstrate that the development of Star Wars was not isolated from the great artistic traditions that preceded it. It was an extension of those. It's a very generous gesture. In order to inspire future generations, Lucas is utilizing his personal collection to produce a public resource. He is constructing a temple to a concept rather than a monument to himself. The notion that narratives are important. What have we discovered then? George Lucas gave us the Rosetta Stone to his own galaxy at the age of 81. He has acknowledged that laser swords were never the only aspect of Star Wars. It is the 40-year-old response to a 10-year-old boy's query concerning God. It's a contemporary myth designed to serve as a moral compass in a world that seemed to have lost its direction. He has demonstrated that the Force, a universal idea for a higher power devoid of dogma, was his response to religious conflict. He has unequivocally stated that balancing the Force does not include making concessions to evil. It needs to be cleaned. The dark side is a cancer that was eventually wiped off by an unselfish act of love, not a necessary opposite. In order to firmly establish the idea that guides it all, he is currently constructing a temple, his museum of story art. That narrative is more than just amusement. It's how we create communities and discover our purpose. We debated the lore and the plot flaws for decades. The elephant's shape was the point of contention amongst us, the blind men. George Lucas, however, was constantly considering the big picture. He was creating more than just a planet. He was attempting to describe our reality. He was discussing our greatest hopes, our worst fears, and our never-ending quest for purpose through fiction. We are the focus of the Star Wars narrative, not the Skywalkers. It's a tale that teaches us that friendship is one of the strongest forces in the universe, that anyone can be a hero, and that redemption is always possible. It serves as a reminder that one act of kindness can bring about equilibrium even in the most dire circumstances. Lucas produced more than just a series of films. He accomplished his goal precisely. He presented us with a fresh fairy tale. We have new myths to live by because of him. He also reminded us that a mysterious energy field isn't the universe's most potent force. It's the potency of a compelling narrative. What are your thoughts? Does this alter your perspective on the Star Wars saga? Please share your opinions in the comments section below. Additionally, share this video with someone who might benefit from hearing it if you think that tales have the ability to transform the world. Thank you for viewing. For almost half a century, we believed we understood Star Wars. The hero's journey has been dissected. We have sketched out the unending cycles of galactic conflict and debated prophecies. We created whole mythologies based on this story. We were certain that we understood everything. As it happens, we were mistaken. We have been like the blind man caressing an elephant the entire time. Every one of us clings to a tiny fragment of a much greater reality, believing we have the whole picture. One senses a tree trunk, another a wall, and a third a rope. They are all unable to see the animal. We've been those blind men for decades. The creator of the elephant is now at last revealing the entire thing to us. George Lucas is 81 years old and no longer merely a billionaire, a filmmaker, or a creator of myths. He is more akin to a philosopher, reflecting on a lifetime of work and, for the first time, revealing the intensely private spiritual issues that served as its covert catalyst. He's revealing something we were unaware of. And the inspiration for it is not merely a fresh interpretation of Star Wars, but the original. The one that has spent the entire time hidden in plain sight. His responses have nothing to do with trade disputes or midi-chlorians. They deal with the essential character of God, the source of our anxieties, and the reasons why we sorely need narratives to make sense of our existence. His explanations will cause you to rethink everything you believe to be true. The Force itself, the Jedi, and the Sith. Another fan theory is not what this is. This is the creator's last statement. A great story always begins with a question. For Homer, it was about Achilles' fury. Shakespeare thought it dealt with the essence of existence. George Lucas saw it as a query. He claimed that when he was just 10 years old, he asked his mother for the first time, if there is only one God, why are there so many different religions? The child's query is straightforward. However, it contains a huge theological conundrum that has baffled intellectuals for ages. It was the first thread a young child in Modesto, California, ripped from a tapestry that would eventually create a universe. That question lingered in his mind. It became into his life's main interest and, hence, the driving force of Star Wars ideology. Consider it. Lucas's 40-year-long response to his own early query is the Force. Not God is the Force. Lucas has been very clear that it is not in the manner we typically think of it. Rather, the galaxy is bound together by an energy field that is a dazzling abstraction that is produced by all living beings. It is a framework that is intended to be universal, avoiding the tenets of any particular religion in order to get at the spiritual truth that may unite them all. Lucas saw that practically all religions used Star Wars as a contemporary tale when it was first released. Christians witnessed the obvious conflict between right and wrong. In Yoda's wisdom, awareness was acknowledged by Buddhists. Taoists believed that the Tao was the flow of the power. This was the entire purpose, not just a fortunate coincidence. Lucas had no intention of establishing a new faith. He was attempting to capture the spirit of religion and its benefits to us. His goal was to establish a spiritual conduit that did not require allegiance to a single organization, but rather fostered a conviction in something greater. Lucas himself has drawn a parallel between this and the old Indian tale of the blind man and the elephant. Only the parts of the creature that each guy can touch are used to describe it in the story. The ear is a fan, the leg is a pillar, and the tail is a rope. Regarding the large picture, they are all entirely incorrect, yet they are all correct in their own small ways. Because they are unable to perceive the big picture, they are fighting over the details. Lucas's perspective on human faiths is just this. The blind men are the Sith, the Jedi, the Night Sisters, and the Guardians of the Wills. Everybody is connected to the Force. Each has centered their small portion of it around a philosophy and set of rules. The light side and compassion are how the Jedi feel it. The dark side and passion are how the Sith feel it. Despite the fact that they are all stroking the same elephant, their divergent perspectives lead to an unending battle. This intellectual conundrum was brilliantly transformed into great drama by Lucas. The conflicts that tear the galaxy apart are religious conflicts rather than merely political conflicts. They originate from dogmatic, unyielding views of a single, all-encompassing truth. The Sith believe the Jedi are too afraid to fully utilize the Force, while the Jedi believe the Sith have perverted it. They are arguing on the elephant's description. Lucas didn't merely invent a magic system for his space opera when he created the Force. To investigate the question that had accompanied him since he was a child, he constructed a metaphysical playground. Why are there so many different religions? Because, as Star Wars demonstrates, each culture and individual encounters the vast mystery of life from a unique perspective. We create different regulations and give it different names. However, the Force, or fundamental power, never changes. Lucas's extensive knowledge of mythology was the fuel, if the question about God was the spark. And it's evident from his words over the years how profound this concept is. He sees himself as participating in myth-making, one of humanity's oldest and most important traditions, rather than merely telling stories. Lucas has frequently outlined how fear is actually the foundation of human nature. We are little beings in a vast, chaotic, and largely nonsensical universe. We are afraid of death, the unknown, and the dark. And for thousands of years, what has been our primary means of coping with that fear? Tales. According to Lucas, mythology is more than just a collection of ancient stories about monsters and gods. It's a means of survival. It's an effort by our species to put the unknown in context. He proposed that because the sunrise was explained by their mythology, cavemen believed they had everything figured out. To make sense of their own conflicting emotions, the ancient Greeks turned to their gods. In a world that frequently seems to lack order, these stories give people a common set of beliefs that enable them to form communities. Lucas's goals go much beyond simply producing films at this point. According to him, we began to lose that crucial component of our social glue in the 20th century. He observed that myth, religion, and folklore were losing their traditional sources. He once claimed that children were puzzled by the lack of a moral perspective in the mythology they were acquiring from television. He believed that the fairy tales that educate youngsters how to live and serve as a moral compass were being denied to them. His response was Star Wars. It was a deliberate attempt to create a contemporary myth. It was intended to serve as a vehicle for eternal ideas, not merely a film. Lessons on self-sacrifice, friendship, loyalty, and the conflict between our selfish impulses and our better angels. His work was renowned for drawing from that of his mentor, Joseph Campbell, whose book The Hero with 1,000 Faces established the standard for hero stories in all cultures. Lucas's effort, however, went beyond merely using a template. He was creating an operating system for a new age, not merely replicating ancient stories. He added what he refers to as perceptible precepts to Star Wars. Consider the straightforward lines that have been ingrained in our culture. I hope the Force is on your side. There is no try, do, or do not. The road to the dark side is fear. These are more than just memorable dialogue passages. They are moral precepts, fragments of a contemporary gospel. This is even true of the saga's appearance. A sterile, machine-like order is symbolized by the Empire's stark lines and monochromatic grays. The uprising is characterized by warm hues, earth tones, and imperfection, which stand in for humanity. These symbols are intended to reinforce the main moral dilemma on a subconscious level. This is the reason the prequels were so significant to Lucas. Many supporters criticized them for being involved in trade federations and politics. However, their goal is evident when viewed through the prism of Lucas's mythological endeavor. There is more to the prequels than the tale of a hero's downfall. They are a